Some giga bull at the CFTC is talking about pumping Bitcoin. What is this story? This is crazy
Hells
talk.
yeah.
All right, we're talking about CFTC Chair Behnam going on stage and saying, hey, if there's a CFTC regulated market, Bitcoin could, quote, double in price. With the price prediction, that's crazy talk. Anyway, I was struck by this one. Interesting little nugget here. Obviously, the subtext is there's a bit of a turf war between the CFTC and the SEC over which U.S. agencies should regulate the crypto markets. This is specific to Bitcoin, so we can get into that in a bit. But I thought this was interesting as we've seen some things out of the CFTC lately that may make crypto people wonder if it's really the favorite of the two regulatory bodies. We'll also get to that as well. But I'm going to toss it straight to Will for his initial thoughts on this headline, which is definitely a bit striking.
I love the price prediction. Yeah, let's go back to the background for this story, which is the Senate Agriculture Committee. Yes, that still matters. Agriculture matters. That's where the debate between the CFTC and the SEC is happening for the future of digital assets. Who's going to be the regulatory body that oversees all these things? And right now, there's a little bit of a turf war between who gets to oversee what. SEC has definitely come out very strong. There's been some op-eds in the Wall Street Journal. There's been some nice videos from Gary Gensler. And now we have this nice little quote from CFTC chairman saying, hey, we should have it. And if we get it, we might pump for Bitcoin a little bit. Of course, that's not what he's saying, but it's a nice little add-on there that I like to look at. We'll see what happens with this committee hearing. We'll see what happens with the decision. It has to go all the way through the process to get voted on, so it could be quite a while. But it's really important, right? Who decides to regulate these bodies or who's in charge of regulating these bodies could matter for who gets some time with penalties, who gets fined, how much you have to pay to be in exchange, how these tokens are processed. It's very big for the industry. And I think you could do a lot to mature the industry over the next 2 years. So definitely something to watch. Again, got to bring back to that price point. Can't believe he said that. It's a little interesting. Most times regulators do not talk about price at all, but I love that he said it. Jen, over to you.
Imagine Gensler making a price prediction like this. I think everyone's minds would be blown. He said in the article, growth might occur if we had a well-regulated space. I don't think anyone is arguing that, but I thought that the funding piece was really interesting. So he mentioned that they've had relatively flat funding over at the CFTC over the past 5 or 6 years. And if they were in fact to oversee the crypto industry, that they would need more budget to do that. And so I wonder if there's maybe a little bit of an opportunistic take here on the CFTC's part. If we oversee crypto, we can get more money, the money we've been fighting for the last 5 or 6 years, and then, have this new jurisdiction. I know there's a lot more that goes into this, but I thought it was interesting how that came up in the story as well. I'll pass it back to you, Will.
Yeah, the quote I want to pull from the story is really interesting. He said, quote, non-bank crypto institutions thrive on regulation. They thrive on regulation clarity. They thrive on level playing field. And they may otherwise say they don't want that, but they may bicker about the type of regulation. But what they love most is regulation because they are the smartest, the fastest, and the most well-resourced. With those attributes, they can beat everyone else in the market. So obviously crypto bull, right? Obviously pretty bullish on the entire space if he's going to give it those accolades. He's saying you need some regulation, which I think in the crypto space, you've bounced back into that corner, not necessarily fans of regulation. And to date, that's been for some good reasons and for some bad reasons. There's definitely been some bad actors who have been slapped down, but there's also been some cases where there's been misaligned incentives, there's been oversights, there has been bad rulings on things. And I can see how entrepreneurs in the crypto space are not very interested in regulation. At the end of the day, though, it is coming, right? There's already being processed within these Senate committees, within these hearings. So it's going to happen. You just hope that's going to end up on the right side of the table. Zach, over to you.
Yeah, I think to me, the thing that stands out also was, the prospect of institutional inflows should a more clearly regulated marketplace emerge. And I think that generally holds, to Jen's point. I think that, that is sort of the view from Wall Street is that if there are more clear rules of the road, those people who may or may not be, those people who may still be on the sidelines would be more interested in aping into crypto here. So I think that stood out to me as well. But I do think that like we do risk sort of lionizing one regulator over the other. We've seen that, I think, in the crypto markets in the last year or so, where the SEC has sort of become the big bad villain, and the CFTC is sort of like, yes, commodity. It's like a gold. Bitcoin is so decentralized. It just is. It's like this raw thing. It's like corn or gold or oil, and it should surely be within the CFTC's remit. Meanwhile, I think it was just last week, the CFTC took this action against UkiDAO, which is the thing that followed BZX, and that enforcement action had potential ramifications among those who looked into this thing that suggested that getting DAOs off the ground would be extremely difficult, right? So there is still some things within the CFTC that may not be what crypto true believers are hoping the CFTC is, right? If you look at the UkiDAO thing, basically like everyone in the DAO got served. And that's potentially really chilling for innovation in new organizational forms. Again, whether this organizational form was set up to escape regulation and enforcement, that's an open question. But for other people experimenting in this space, the CFTC did something last week that was potentially really scary for these future Web3 organizations. So before we lionize the CFTC as sort of the Giga Chad champion of the crypto space, it's worth remembering that sometimes when you build up these idols, they ultimately end up biting you. Jen, I want to give it to you for your last thoughts on this one.
I just want to add to the UkiDAO piece. Everyone in that DAO got served, even if you were anonymous, have no personal information out there, you were served with a lawsuit from the CFTC via it being posted on a public message board. Just let that sink in for a little bit. It is crazy and going to be an interesting one to watch. But Will, I think you got our next story.
Yeah, last thought there really quick is keep your Discord private. Don't want to get served by the SEC.